we're live.
We are live.
Yay! So, welcome to Lunar Pumpkin. I'm Emily Coucher. I am an astrologer, intuitive tarot card reader, and moon lover. And I aim to help you grow your potential and manifest your dreams into reality using the divine time of the lunar cycle. So, before I introduce my lovely guest, I hope you'll allow me to talk to you about something that I'm really excited about. So, would you like to feel more aligned and understood? Astrology helps you to understand yourself better, to find a deeper sense of purpose, to see more compassion in yourself and others, and generally aligns you with the planets and the seasons in your life. And it truly helps you to remain present. So I will be teaching an in-person astrology course locally in Hampshire. So if anybody would like to attend, by all means, do feel free to book. The details for that are in the description. So let me introduce you to my guest. Hello, Alyssa.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
Good. There's a lot going on.
So Alyssa is a Depth Life Coach and Astrologer, and her approach to astrology combines professional background and expertise in psychology, Eastern philosophy, and Jungian psychology. Jungian depth coaching, sorry. I messed it up.
Yeah, it is a psychology too. Yes, Jung is one of the fathers of psychology, so you can't mess it up.
Okay. As well as meditation and mindfulness. So are you seeking more fulfillment and new direction in your life? Have you checked all the boxes, followed the conventional path, and yet, despite having done everything right, still find yourself wanting more? Well, if you're ready for something different, now is the perfect time to explore new avenues, reevaluate your goals and values, and embark on a journey of self-exclamation and growth. So when working with Alyssa, she'll show you how to navigate, bear with me, this transition to uncover hidden potential and chart a course towards a more meaningful and satisfying life. So welcome,
Beautiful.
Alyssa.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's lovely to have you.
Yeah, this is fun.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your big three? So your sun, your moon, your rising, and how they play out in your life.
Yeah. So, so I think of astrology as kind of the same way I think of the universal laws of physics, that it's always there and always available and always offering energy and also affecting us, whether or not we're conscious of it. So a bit like gravity, if you decide to walk off something that's very tall, gravity will feel different than something that if you're just walking on the ground, but it still exists. It's part of the fabric of our experience. At least that has been my experience with astrology. So whether or not I want to acknowledge or become conscious is really part of that deeper spiritual awakening process that happens, I think, to all of us. And so my big three, I am an Aquarius sun in the third house. I'm a Virgo moon, and I am a Scorpio rising, and it is quite on the cusp. So it's just, 22 minutes into Scorpio. And still I have that, I definitely can feel that influence. And how I have experienced those things in my life. We know that with Aquarius, it's that fixed energy, so that sustaining kind of energy. And even though I have this Aquarius sun in the third house, which, Aquarius isn't maybe as traditionally known for being a rule follower or for those kinds of things, but it allows me for some stability. So I seek stability in life. I think having some stability is incredibly important. And I have a lot of fixed and then cardinal energies and the modalities in my chart. So the Aquarius part it's fun because I've stepped into that a little bit more as I have progressed through life. And so I have quite a heavy influence of Libra in my chart too, which is a really fun balance with Aquarius. Because Libra is orienting to other and Aquarius orients to the collective and says, how can I kind of raise you up with love and help move the collective forward? And how do we reimagine a future that is different? How do we move towards that? And in my personal life, that looks like reflecting on, where am I following convention, or perhaps looking to other first as opposed to really sinking into and rooting into those higher values of raising the collective up. So looking at where I'm getting stuck, and then I can use that Aquarius kind of energy, or I can access that to get that bigger picture to pull back and then to move forward and decide what rules I'm going to follow and not. And
well, yeah.
So it's a really fun sign. I have one thing that really resonated with me when I was talking with a friend is that Aquarius is also the sign where, our childhoods, none of us have easy childhoods. We all have easy and hard things that happen to us in different experiences. And yet that was one of the stabilizing and then kind of resiliency factors in my childhood. I've always had a deep love of psychology, so that goes along with Scorpio rising and a few other things. And so I think when I was 10 years old, people would ask what I wanted to do, and I said, be a psychologist. So I was so fascinated by why people behaved in the way that they did, because I had quite a unique set of childhood experiences. And the Virgo moon is ever present. So Virgo is that mutable earth energy. So I've heard it likened to sand. It's the most flexible of the earth signs. And really that heart for service and heart for others. And so I became a psychologist in schools for a number of years because I love working with children and families. I love helping people. It's really where my heart lies, if you were to ask me. My love language is I acts of service. So it aligns really nicely. There tends to be, there's always that evolved and unevolved kind of experience of a sign. And with Virgo, there can be some perfectionism and self-criticism, because one of the gifts of Virgo is to look at and analyze and discern what is the priority and then move towards it. And also to have like a really specific way in doing that. So it's really fun because my moon creates boxes, and the Virgo moon creates boxes and organizes in its way, and then my Aquarius sun comes and smashes all the boxes apart and says, yeah, we need to break all the rules. So I have this very strong Libra, emphasis, but also Scorpio rising, and I'm like, it's a really fun life. It's incredibly deep and rich, and I think one of the things I love about astrology is it gives that deep sense of feeling held by the universe, of knowing that there is a plan, of knowing that I don't need to control all of the how, that there's something larger than me out there. And so it instills that kind of spiritual trust, because I can look at that and then I can start to develop that self-compassion and kind of laugh at myself when I'm being very Virgoian, I'm like, oh, everything has to be just perfect, and it has to be this and it has to be that. So that's that's where I'm currently sitting with the experience of those energies.
It's like, tick the lists. Oh, screw the list. We don't need a list. That's the rules.
Yes. Oh, yes. And it's not just a list. It's like a color-coded list with
oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. No, it's got like little boxes. I mean, it's like it's quite a thing. It's quite a thing. And there is a particular way. I mean, the archetype of Virgo is the high priestess, or one of the archetypes associated with. And when you think of that and the intent to seek out, to discern, and to bring back and purify, if you were a priestess, there would be a certain ritual and you would absolutely follow the ritual correctly. Excuse me. And so I think some of that aligns beautifully with the kind of higher archetype of the sign, but it can be really fun to experience on a human level as I'm going through life.
Yeah, I think if Virgo bringing the sacred to the everyday. So
Yes.
making the mundane and routine and what could be quite boring, making it magical and making it worthwhile.
Yeah, it does, because that's where the Eastern philosophy and the way that Carl Jung presented his theories and ways of being related to psychology, it really has to do with having a really deep, meaningful, to me, I interpret it as like a symbol-led life, that there is meaning in everything, and that we are constantly being offered, by our whatever your belief set comes from. For me, it's by my higher self, information that if I am able to receive it, it helps me progress on my path in a much easier, much happier way. And so it is really, the idea of sinking into the everyday ritual routine and finding joy in that, whether it's how you make your coffee, that it's not just you're, like throwing the stuff together really quick so you can drink a cup of coffee and rush off to your next thing. But can you pause for just 5 seconds and sink into that moment and really drop back into the body? So it's really heart-centered, a way of living. So yeah, that makes sense.
So actually, can you tell me a little bit about your journey as to how you found astrology and psychology and why you started working with it with clients as well?
Yeah. So in retrospect, 6 years later, I can look back and say, oh, I was entering the process of individuation. That's a Jungian term, Carl Jung's term. And this is something that we all go through, or hopefully do, because this is our soul's calling. And it really looks at, what it feels like, and for me, what I personally experienced, was, I was a psychologist in school, so I had this very service-oriented, heart-centered work, and yet I was so burned out, and so experiencing some like physical illness related to that, and that can be associated with Virgo as well. But there was just there became this disconnect. So as I kind of went through that process, and then I was in a relationship, and that was starting to change. So you kind of have this wake up that's not super comfortable. It's not very comfortable. That says like things aren't quite what I expected them to be. And maybe I have done all of the right things, or maybe I didn't do the right thing, but something here is not, it isn't fulfilling in the way that I want it to be. So you kind of feel that yearning or that calling for additional growth. And it is not comfortable. It's a little bit like Uranus when it comes into your, when it's affecting different aspects of your chart, where there's a bit of a shock and a wake up, at least it was for me. So that looked like the ending of a significant relationship, the eventual resigning from my work in public systems, and entering into a dark night of the soul, essentially. And I really had to feel my way through that process. And that started in 2018. It probably started before then, but it really became evident in 2018. At the time, I didn't know that's what I was going through, but I knew something needed to shift. And I had this deep desire for additional kind of soul growth and self-improvement. And as I went through that process in this super awkward, clunky, feeling my way in the dark kind of way, I found that going out into nature and hiking and really reestablishing some of that more felt embodied kind of somatic practice around being present was incredibly helpful. It has been such an incredible journey now when I look back over the last 6 years, because it led me to astrology, which helped me kind of make sense of some of the things I thought was so interesting. I kind of went from reading, IQ learning memory assessment charts to reading star charts. So I felt like that was a nice bridge. And so I ended up completing an astrology program, and I loved the idea of this they talk about like the kaleidoscope of your unique astrological kind of blueprint or fingerprint. Like the moment you're born, here is kind of your imprint or what you're offered. And that was just such a strong visual for me as far as, I don't believe in fate as far as there being this fatalistic force that's out there, trying to scare you or trying to harm you or trying to do anything. There's not a malevolent force out there, but just knowing that this is the chart that I cast before I came here, and here's what I really wanted to learn, and look at these experiences really helped me start to go through that process. And so I love the planets and the houses and all the relationships between them. I'm very relationship focused. So I think if that fully answers your question, yeah, I think about 6 years ago I started going through this, and then I also came to Jungian life coaching, so depth coaching, just a couple of years ago, and that really kind of filled in the pieces around astrology is this beautiful art and science. It's been practiced for thousands of years, right? It helps us find our way kind of in the dark. And the focus on Jungian psychology allows for you to really kind of do the work around ego and shadow and persona. What I found is if the shadow work isn't done, it's incredibly difficult to move through that process of individuation. In fact, it's impossible. You must do your shadow work if you are to grow. And you can do that in lots of different ways. But in moving through that process so you can reach that higher actualization, it's looking at your mindsets, it's looking at your imprints and conditioning, it's developing, compassion for self and the observer and non-attachment. So that's been my work over the last 2 or 3 years. So lots of self-growth. Last 6 years, yeah.
Yeah, because no matter how much we think, oh, we've dealt with this, dealt with that, well, unless we're actually willing to release and look at some of why things happened, actually release some of that and actually not hold on to it, we're allowing it to come with us into the next chapter of our life or whatever, aren't we?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, okay, yeah, I'll forgive myself, I'll forgive the situation, do the therapy if I need it, or I'll work through it in a different way, whether it's yoga, it's meditation, it's Reiki, whatever spiritual practice you need, or just journaling and observing without, as you say, without the attachment and the judgment connected to it. Because sometimes it's the judgment that causes things like shame and depression, or the future thinking of, well, actually, I'll do that when I feel like I am somebody who knows more than, or I'll do that when I'm a professional in this, or I know everything that I need to know. But then you stay stuck there if you get the anxiety and everything, if you're actually not willing to be in the present and accept that you're never going to know enough. So you might as well start where you are and try and grow and build on that. So
and the idea with the Jungian work is that those are the conversations that I think about that happen between the lower self, which is our kind of physical manifestation, and the higher self, which is that spiritual component, or larger consciousness, however you orient that. And so in doing the work related to ego, shadow, and persona, we are then able to take that higher perspective. And then when our ego pops up and is like, oh, but you can't do that because there's this thing that needs to be perfect, or there's this thing. And you can start to see in astrology how it blends beautifully. And Jung did a lot of work with astrology. I mean, he pulled like over 800 charts, I believe, that he created by hand. He believed that astrology was a kind of the roadmap of the mind, of the soul. But it is really looking at, being able to notice with compassion when your ego is coming up and telling you something, and understanding the function of the ego, and then understanding the function of the larger mind and how those things interplay. And it allows for what I feel like is authentic, true growth on a deeper level, because affirmations and all of the rituals that you do are so important, but they can only go so far, because you'll run into resistance from your ego because it doesn't want things to change. And so it will come up whenever you are, like if you've ever had the experience where you were just about ready to take the next step, or just about ready to launch a business, or just about ready to do this, or you're not sure quite how to navigate something. And then all of a sudden these fears and anxieties and these narratives that you've had, that a lot aren't even ours personally. They're part of the collective. They're part of our culture, our society. This is the work that helps you actually understand and then work with that energy, as opposed to pushing it away or being influenced by it heavily. So, yeah.
I think we can all fall kind of victim to imposter syndrome and all that jazz, can't we?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But as you say, if we listen to it and we don't explore it, we stay stuck where we are and we don't make any of that progress. So sometimes it's trying to find some of the comfort within the discomfort.
Yeah. And I think in my experience, and this is very, remember I have a lot of Libra in my chart, a lot of emphasis there, but I think that work is done in relationship. And so that is done through conversation with another person. That is done through learning with another person. There's a fair amount of learning, of course, you can do on your own. But when you're looking at ego persona shadow work, it is nearly impossible to do that in an echo chamber that is just you. And I believe that we're designed to be in relationship with each other. I mean, that's how we grow. That's how our souls progress, right? And I also believe that we're here for the evolution of our soul. And that is through our lived experience. And so no matter what is happening in your life, you really cannot mess your life up, because whether or not it's a kind of quote good or bad experience, you're still evolving as a person. And as a larger consciousness, you're still evolving. So you're still helping move consciousness forward. And so you're not messing anything up. And when you can start to develop some of that compassion for yourself, and maybe laugh at some of the things that aren't going correctly, and know that you don't have to get through it alone, it can be incredibly helpful.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So have you got a favorite spiritual practice that you go to again and again for yourself or to work with clients?
I love this. Remember, you're talking to a Virgo moon. All the rituals, right? I have this whole little setup of like crystals and a little fire burning, or like a candle. That's my flame for the Aries, honoring the Aries season. I have to say, of all the things that I have tried, and the ones that I have incorporated, meditation is the one that I have found the most impactful, as far as it affects every area of my life. And I just do 10 to 15 minutes a day. So it's not like I'm meditating every hour or anything, extreme, but really beginning the day in that space where you are, or where I am, trying to reach for that alignment with my higher self, so I can also be in touch with my intuition. To me, that's what spirituality is. It's that ongoing dialogue between higher self and lower self, and through various avenues, but one of those being intuition. And so I know for myself, if I meditate and my mind can relax and I can stop the kind of like monkey mind that's going and all of that, that I will have a whole different experience of my day, as opposed to the days when I don't do that. And I've tried that. There's been many days I've skipped meditation and thought, tomorrow I'm not doing that. Then probably meditation and journaling is incredibly helpful for me. Reflective journaling. Yeah. And then also I count this as a spiritual practice because it adds meaning to my life. I do a lot of looking at astrology charts and looking at, like what's coming and what is being released, and kind of the themes of the energies that are available in any given kind of season or time. So it's some combination of those.
It's quite therapeutic listening to you talk.
Oh, good.
So
I love that.
So I get kind of lost. Like,
Yeah.
I'm actually meant to be asking you things here. Oh,
No, that's great. I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I think even things like this are a spiritual experience, right? Being able to have conversations with like-minded people or kind of joining in on things that are your passions, those kinds of things. So I love that.
well, definitely.
Yeah.
We are on a Gemini moon, so Geminis, as we know, like to talk, and I'm double Gemini with Gemini Sun and Rising.
Oh, beautiful. Well, I've got the sun in the third house, so we're going to get along great. And I have 6 planets in air, which means you have a lot of words accessible or
Yeah.
thoughts, right? A lot going on in the head above the neck.
Firing on all cylinders.
Yes. That I think that actually brings up an interesting thing. Um, I think somatic practices also for me, so that drop me into my heart and back into my body, are incredibly important given the amount of air I have in my chart. Being able to, that is a spiritual practice. So some of that is just like a hand on your heart, a hand on your belly, like do some breathing, but I really believe in the dropping back into the heart space, because we know the brain is actually the gut, the heart, and then, or, the mind is the gut, the heart, and then the brain. And I saw this interesting kind of presentation that said that essentially the brain is kind of like a large antenna, right? It is to receive the messages from the lower, from your, like your gut and from your heart. It is not supposed to be directing the heart and the gut. And so somatic practices would probably go into that spiritual component as well as meditation. So anything that will get you back in the body.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I realize that actually, although you and I know that, I seem to remember that actually that's not common knowledge. A lot of people think, oh, we've got to go with the brain. And if you're working in corporate and public spaces, often it's, well, use your mind, use your brain.
Yes.
Whereas I found what's more therapeutic and intuitive to me is to work the other way around.
Yeah.
But actually, I've always been somebody told, well, why are you wearing your heart on your sleeve all the time? It's
Yeah.
like, because I think from my heart is everything to me.
I
And
love
then
that.
if I'm out of alignment, my gut will tell me. Well, I do
Yes.
also have inflammatory bowel disease, so my gut tells me a lot. But at the same
Yeah.
token, it's a case of, well, actually, the bodies are telling us things all the time, and things like when we're outside and we're experiencing peace that we haven't received in a long time, you realize, I need more nature, more grounding in my life.
Yes.
And you realize that if you're doing the same thing all the time, but you're not actually paying attention to what's the weather doing, what's this scent in my house or working environment or wherever you are, what can I hear, feel, touch, taste, whatever.
Yeah.
Are you actually being present? Because if you're not being present, how are you willing to grow and evolve from where you are? It's a case of this. It's something that we need to learn in each moment, and I feel that we kind of need to tune in a bit more. And that intuition is that middle point that then sometimes we'll connect us back to our brain. Okay, what are we going to do with all those messages?
Yeah. It's not always living in the like, not the liminal space, but it's not always floating, like in perfect meditation and all of that. Like, there are things to do. I think the body holds so much wisdom, and it really is individual in how people are able to connect to their body and to their intuition. For me, when I had started hiking again, I kind of did that at the beginning, kind of to soothe my heart, because I had gone through a breakup, and then also had just started, pulling cards and kind of on this journey of this spiritual awakening of sorts, and trying different practices. And this was around the time that I found astrology as well. And I found that when I was in nature, there was a point at which I could feel my mind relax. And then you start to notice the details, or you start to notice these things. And then I started meditating and just trying to reestablish kind of that relationship with nature, because I love being in nature. And so I would say like, okay, can I have a sign for the day or a symbol for the day? And I would find all these odd little things that, I'm sure people looked at me like I was nuts, because the first thing I found was like this giant spiral, shell. And then I pulled a card that was a spiral. And then I started to feel the flow of like what I now know is that higher self. It follows the law of synchronicity. It's about timing. Everything is happening at exactly the right time. And that's the part that helps you relax some of that kind of monkey mind and chatter that we can get so caught up in, because our societies condition us that way. And there isn't anything inherently wrong. So it's letting go of the judgment. It's just beginning to get curious about it and come to it with compassion and notice when we're doing it. And maybe we laugh at it and think, oh, we're doing that thing again that we learned when we were really little, because when we were little, we needed to survive and be connected in order to survive. And so we developed these ways of being in the world on an unconscious way in order to be able to come into adulthood and make it into adulthood and all of those things. So it's all very adaptive. And there's a lot of self-compassion to be cultivated, but I find that easiest when I'm able to feel and move at that kind of like the pace of the body as opposed to the pace of the mind or the pace of the heart. Like stay in that timing. Yeah, so that resonates.
So what kind of, what things do you offer clients? Whether it's about depth coaching or whether it's about astrology or mixture?
Yeah, I offer all three. So this is very Aquarian, so I like to bring my experiences. I love being able to speak the language of the person that I am working with, essentially. And to me, I look at astrology as a language, as Jungian depth coaching as a language, psychology, Reiki, whatever it is that allows me to meet that person where they are. And so if you are inclined to learn more about astrology and curious about your chart, we can start with pulling your chart and going through your kind of timeline and lifeline and looking at, what your intent was when you came here and discovering some of those deeper meanings and the potentials. If that feels too kind of outside of your realm, then we can start with just looking at where your desires are right now. So those might look like goals, but maybe where you're getting stuck. If you don't know the next right step, just knowing that there is one and that you don't have to do that alone, that if you're at the point where your job doesn't satisfy anymore or your relationships or those, you're kind of starting to feel that agitation that's indicating that you're starting to go through some of this more specific kind of spiritual awakening or this higher self that's calling you forward, that's saying, that this is the evolution of you, that we can figure out what area of life it is that's showing up for you. And it can just help support in you finding that deeper connection, that kind of connection to the spiritual. And my intent is for anyone that I work with to be able to, this is not something that they are reliant on me for. This is wisdom that lies within them already. So you already, as a person, have all of these things within you. You're already whole. I do not believe people are broken, despite the experiences they've had. And so together we can uncover what that connection looks like and how to feel into your intuition if that's something that's difficult, and how to utilize kind of those, whatever kind of modality works for you so that you can walk away with a really deep sense of self-trust. And that is incredibly empowering, at least in my personal experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting as an astrologer as well to listen to things and specific words and phrases that come through when you talk. So a lot of evolution and empowerment. I'm thinking the Scorpio rising's coming through.
There we go. And there's the Scorpio rising. Yes. I am all about the conscious evolution. It's not always
Yeah.
easy. It's not always easy. And, to that end, I think with the Scorpio rising, I have had a number of experiences in my personal life and then through my work with, hundreds of children and families and adolescents and individuals, all of that previously. So there probably isn't anything that I haven't heard. And there's not anything that, scares me as far as like the depth or the darkness or any of that. And that I know aligns very much with Scorpio. Like I am quite happy to sit with you in the dark if that's where you need to be met. Yeah. So if that's part of the process, I can sit with you in that, and we can figure out a way together.
Yeah, because there's definitely the one-to-one nature with a lot of people with some Scorpio in the chart. So as well, that works quite well with therapeutics, the one-to-one and the want for evolution of someone's journey. So
yeah,
perfect. So what would it look like? And actually, you kind of explained a lot of that anyway in our conversation. So is there any kind of pattern that you see in what clients come to you for? Or
I've been focused mostly, and this is an intentional focus. And so, through the Jungian work, we know that like, and also some of those universal laws, as is above, so is below, like, those kinds of things, that what is outside of us reflects what's inside. And so when I look at that related to clientele, I know that my clients are bringing to me things that are reflective of me and vice versa. Right. So, I have found that given my own experiences going through kind of a major break in relationship, and then the kind of the growth through that, the transformation through that, and then also I've really focused on if you are in a career that really called to your heart, called to your soul, and it's no longer doing that because of X, Y, and Z, whether it's burnout or you're finding that, no matter how hard you try, you aren't able to change it, or for whatever reason, if it's no longer satisfying to you, it's not doing what you intended. Those are often the people that I end up working with. They're kind of at this change point or this catalyst point where, I remember when I was going through that, people would say like, oh, you just have to step off this proverbial cliff. And I, for the life of me, could not get my feet off that cliff, hypothetically or otherwise. I was like, I don't know how to do that. I also, I got a lot of like, I'm giving up my security. I'm doing all these things. And so I had to find my own way to be able to transition through letting go of a career that I really held as part of my identity. And that shows up in my chart. I mean, I have my sun sits near the IC, and then directly above is the midheaven. So it's like my identity is deeply tied to what I do in my work. And so those often are the people that are most attracted to what I'm offering, because they resonate kind of with that, having those kinds of experiences.
Yeah, because we're talking about identity, and we're in Aries season that's very apt, especially with going through eclipse season, and it's a case of, right, okay, what's me, what's someone else, how do I meet someone without losing who I am, and how do I have the confidence to do it?
Yes.
So
and these have been the themes. Yeah. And I feel like, we have the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction coming up like on the 20th, and those repeat those themes. So you find this really beautiful patterning, or maybe that's beautiful to Aquarius, Virgo people to look at patterns, but you find this beautiful patterning of synchronicity where you see themes repeating in slightly different iterations. So I look at the themes of the eclipse, and then what was closed out even during the lunar eclipse in Libra, and what was brought to the forefront with the solar eclipse in Aries, and then what's happening with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And the themes all have to do with, where am I holding myself back, especially related to kind of some of the lower or, unevolved kind of energies of Aries that could feel insecure, or really have that kind of like internal voice, like, you're not good enough, you can't do this. what happens if this, those kinds of things, and really asking us to deeply examine where we might be holding ourselves back, where we're stuck, what patterns, when we've oriented to other instead of focusing on ourselves. And then to walk forward imperfect, get up if you fall down. It is your job to walk forward. If you think of what a warrior does, which, is related to Aries, they walk forward, in the art of war, they talk about that the warrior brings, I think it's the battle to the war. They did not go to the war to find the battle. So you walk forward with that knowledge. You have that really deep sense of who you are, or, you're trying to get there. So that's very Aries feeling to me. And there's a lot of those themes repeating it. It looks like, as far as what we're being offered astrologically right now.
Yes, because when I think of Jupiter, I think of taking a leap of faith. And with Uranus, I think of breaking the mold, being the great awakener that it is.
Yes.
So you're taking that leap of faith, you're breaking the mold, but if you're doing so with some of the Aries and Libra energies that we've been working with, it's right, how am I doing this in a way that is in alignment with who I am and my relationship to others as well as myself? We're not neglecting one nor the other, but at the same token, we're not going to stay stuck where we are either. It's like, right, to make any progress, we need to take a leap of faith.
Yes. And the leap of faith, Jupiter expands. It is also the teacher. So there's learning there, and Uranus is unexpected changes. So it's like sudden and kind of shocking, and like it has that like kind of like electric vibe to it, right? And so you look at, and it's happening in the sign of Taurus. I think it's 21 degrees of Taurus. And so it's looking at, again, it's the larger themes that I feel like that I've noticed at least really have to do with that relationship to self and relationship to other, and becoming conscious kind of from that higher perspective around what am I doing and why, and where are my goals and where am I oriented, because it is incredibly spiritual to be self-oriented. I mean, to actually do the work of the higher and lower self, of developing a way of being in the world that is honoring who you are, because you have unique gifts that no one else has. You have that astrological fingerprint that no one else has. So you have gifts that no one else has to offer, right? And that is the work of that evolution, of that kind of, all of that is finding that and offering it. And Aries says you need to step into that, right? And we can't step into it if we're constantly orienting to other, or always kind of thinking of ourselves last and taking care of ourselves last, whether that be in health or in just energy in general. It's incredibly important to care for and cultivate that self-care. And it's a living of your truth, right? Aries is all about the I, like it's a living of your truth. So knowing your truth and living it, and unapologetically.
Yeah.
Because, it's fire. I don't know the last time I ever had any sort of like thought around fire, asking permission or like apologizing for being too warm, or doing something like that. Fire just is. It exists. It just is. And so those are some really, really dominant themes, I think, or kind of patterns that seem to come up over and over with all of the kind of astrology packed month of April. It's really intense. Yeah.
I mean, what came through for me was choosing your footing. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of like the Taurian idea, like one in front of the other. But then if you're having the power to choose, it's like the power from Aries with the expansion of Jupiter, and then what's the unexpected change we're going to see here from all of that? How's it going to grow?
Yeah. And where is it going to, like, I also think of that like kind of electrifying part of Uranus, like maybe breaking free some of the stuff that keeps us stuck, right? So we'll still have to go a bit slow and steady because it's in Taurus, but it's some of that breaking free of where it's things have been holding us back.
Yeah.
So that is one of the gifts of Uranus. And it is like a neutral. It's neither good nor bad. It just comes and says, and here's your awakening. It's also, you can't get away from it. It's going to happen. It's already happening. I think we're already in the rays of that from what I can tell. The energy is already there. And if you're ever curious about what's happening in the sky and you don't know much, go and sit and watch people for just a bit. It's really fun. You can start to see the shifts in the collective, as far as whether that is the influence of the moon shifting signs or more in depth, like astrological influences. But you can talk to a local business owner, they know, they're like, they'll share what their experiences of any given day. And I find that is generally reflective of what's happening in the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for indulging my tangent.
Oh, I love it. I love tangents. I definitely talk in circles, so please.
So, oh yes, can you speak to any sort of challenges that you had? I know we've spoken about quite a few in some respects, but,
yeah.
And things that have helped you overcome what's come up for you.
Yeah, I think some of the challenges I experienced when I was starting to create kind of what I was hoping for a business, or what I'm doing right now, was that I would get really stuck in kind of my own ego's story around things needing to be a certain way before I could do the next thing. And so we're always engaged in, once we do our shadow work, we're still engaged in that. It's not like all of a sudden you've now like transformed into this magical being that no longer does shadow work, because you wouldn't be alive, or doesn't come back and have the ego that's still present and still telling us, kind of its own internal narratives and things, and putting up barriers and all of the fun things that our egos do. So I think that for me, it was challenging to kind of get initiated in a different career path. I had a lot of beliefs that I wasn't aware of around worthiness, around money, around spirituality, self-trust. All of these kind of core themes came up as I did kind of my individual work around ego and persona and shadow, and really examining those, and then being able to move. I kind of had this fear that if I were to return to working, then it would look like what work looked like before. And so then I was kind of frozen in this kind of in between space for a bit. So I think the living authentically and being able to live in a way that is congruent with the spiritual awakening, and also being a business owner and also offering those things, incorporating all of that, was quite a learning experience for me.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. It's kind of that heart-led, business. So the practices, our meditation helps, it's finding whatever spiritual orientation feels like it aligns for you, and it has to do with self-discipline around actually doing that spiritual work. So whether you read or sing or dance or hike or whatever it is you do for your spiritual practice, to me, it's in finding that ritual and that practice, committing to it, and then following through with it. That's what allows you to overcome those barriers and the little voices in your head that will tell you you can't do something, or, all those ego narratives. So lovely that it crops up all the time, as it does. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So tell me some things you're most proud of. Some of your achievements to date.
Oh, I think I am. I shy away from the word proud, but I guess the thing, I feel really good about where I'm sitting in this moment. Mm-hmm. Like I look back at the number and kinds of experiences that I've had. And I feel so, it's not relieved, but I have such a sense of trust in the universe and trust in myself. And those were things that I really wanted when I kind of started on this journey, but I didn't know how to cultivate. It wasn't, I had some trust of self. I could make decisions. I could go through a day, but I didn't have that deep internal, awareness of how to trust myself. I didn't know how to do a lot of those things. I wasn't taught, to do that. It's a very Western kind of conditioning around your worth being what you do versus your worth being who you are. And so I think the development of knowing from a personal level, that development of that relationship, or that reawakening or realization of that awakening with my higher self, that relationship that I have, that's the thing. I love that so much. And I feel really solid in where I sit right now. And so grateful for all of the experiences that have led to this. So I think, I don't know about proud, but that's what I feel good about. Yeah. And then starting my own business and being able to follow my dreams as far as that. That's so exciting. The world opens up and there is so much more to it when you're able to have that connection and live in the way that really honors who you are authentically.
Beautiful.
So, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
So, how do you stay in touch, consistent with your dreams and manifest them into reality?
Yeah. So I use meditation, and then I have some more concrete kind of traditional looking things. Like I have, 3, 6, whatever, month plans, like 30 days, 90 days, whatever. I have some goals and planning, that's more on the kind of concrete side of things. I intentionally feel into things. So I use active imagination and visualization, those kinds of components now, to really encapsulate the feeling of what that dream will be when it's realized, as opposed to what would I maybe have done, or the steps that lead up to it. So I really feel into things and spend a lot of time in that space, because I know when I'm doing that, then I'm shifting kind of my frequency and my vibration, and it's moving me towards that. And so outside of meditation and hiking and art, and constantly engaging that creative mind, because that is a spiritual component, or that is spirituality. A lot of it links me to it. I absolutely believe in the feeling into. So if I want something to happen, I try to imagine what will it feel like, when I am that, or when I have that, or whatever it is. And so I find that also allows me to stay in a heart space, kind of heart-led way, as opposed to flipping back into the old script that's in the head and, wants you to write out a to-do list in different colors and organize it accordingly. Thank you, Virgo moon.
I've got a Capricorn moon. I know some of that, but not to the extent that Virgo does.
Well, Capricorn is beautiful because you have that bigger picture, right? Like you are systems. Like that is you're, they say it's from an ecology standpoint, you're standing on top of the mountain and you're looking down at all of the, Taurian and Virgoian, energies that are organizing and going at their pace and doing their things, and very much in the smaller and then maybe second tier up level of detail. But if you have a Capricorn moon, you have systems level work, that's a big deal. Yeah, that's a lot of power. and that's a lot of be easy on yourself too.
Oh yeah, no, it's not easy.
No, Capricorn is not easy. Absolutely not.
it's the wanting to leave the legacy that will outlive you. But in a
Yeah.
way, that is quite a feat. How is that even doable? But
Maybe
yeah,
it's in the living.
yeah,
Maybe leaving the legacy is in the living, because it is in how people feel when they are around us that we are remembered, right? It's an individual legacy. So maybe it is less of a statue, not that you're asking for a statue, but if you want one, please commission a few of them and see whichever one like fits like your heart. If you'd like a statue, I'm all for that.
Well, maybe I should just have two, because for the Gemini, it's like,
Yes.
part of me, and that's the other half.
Yes. Here's the duality. The duality of Gemini represented in Capricorn in this beautiful statue that I've erected as my legacy. And then
and they've got holding some food in the middle.
Yeah, and it'd have to be high quality. I mean, my Venus is in Capricorn, so I understand. I am all about integrity and quality and doing things like, to the highest level. So I think the legacy, when I think of that is, from that comes a desire to have meaning, to be remembered, to have had an impact, to have done something, that this life mattered to us, right? And so that, in every conversation that you're having with people, whether it's astrology or whatever, however you're sharing your energy, that is, the study of epigenetics is a psychology kind of science related thing, where it looks at the environment and how our genes shift and change based on our environment. And, the presentation of the genes. And so if you think of that, then every conversation you're having is having an effect on people. So you are part of their environment, right? So you have a legacy that is built already. Yeah.
Wow. That's the intention, and you spoke it beautifully. Thank you.
Yeah. You're doing it. This conversation, we won't be quite the same after this conversation. We're always a slightly new iteration of ourselves, right? So you are leaving a legacy in the interactions you have, or the intentions that you put out.
Back to you.
Okay, back to me.
Are there any goals or themes of the year that you'd like to share with people, or anything we haven't mentioned?
Yeah, I think just I really appreciate the timing of the astrological themes around examining what your dreams are, what it looks like and feels like, and who you feel like you are when you are in your most authentic self. Being gentle with yourself in observing or examining why it might be that you are feeling like you have handed your power away, which isn't actually possible, but that definitely is a feeling, right? And how to bring that awareness and that power back to that heart centered, back to the center of you, where it always resides. We cannot actually hand our power away, but we certainly can perceive that we are. And the orientation to other before self is a huge theme in my life. And just examining that and really being conscious around how that's playing out in my life, and if that's serving kind of my higher purpose, which is to be of service to other people and to, lead by example, by walking in that kind of spiritual alignment. Yeah.
Perfect. I was thinking about how you've got things like the devil card and Scorpio thing, and there's sort of like chains and that you can actually release those by your own ability.
Yeah.
They're not really tight or anything. They're loosely there. You're loosely bound to it if you want to be.
Yes.
And then
we bind ourselves.
We bind ourselves, yes.
Yes.
It's what the constraints and things that we feel that we have to do, but actually we can get ourselves out. And then I was weaving back to the Lovers, because I was thinking of like myself, unfortunately, and like the Gemini feel of, okay, what can we do in harmony with others?
Yes,
and then it was,
I love that.
Yeah, there was just sort of a lot of themes. I kind of felt called out when you talked about my Capricorn moon. I was like, you got me.
I'm so sorry. That was not meant to call
No.
you out. That was meant as compassion. Like
It was.
you are leaving a legacy as you are living. And so it is, that's important for you to know. That's all. It came from a compassionate place.
No, I felt it. It's good.
Yeah. That's so true. I know, our mind creates our reality through our beliefs and our conditioning, right? And so whatever is holding us back, that the release point of that lies within us, because that also lies within us. So we truly are limiting ourselves to an extent. Of course, there are external events that could be happening too. I'm not dismissing that, but we hold the power to release ourselves in many instances, to dissolve those chains and to move into that greater harmony, like what you're talking about.
Pretty sure it's like the Two of Swords has like the blindfold, and she's like bound, but yeah, it's like the answer being the intuition between the two.
Not the mind, not the brain.
It's like not the bounds of the mind and the earthly pursuits of where we feel trapped, not necessarily just living in the lover's side, but
it's a balance,
balancing it all out. It's kind of strange how the conversation led me to a middle of a tarot spread in my head.
No, I love that. That is such a beautiful visual representation of the conversation. Isn't that fun? You could have a visual representations of spoken connections. You could do something with that. That's really neat. Yeah, that's a beautiful visual.
So where can people find you if they want to work with you?
Right now, I just have my personal Instagram up. I'm going through some rebranding. So it's anders.ally on Instagram, and they can just message me if they're interested. And I offer coaching packages and, chart readings. And it always starts with a conversation, because I believe in the connection of people first. And so it always starts with a conversation to see if it's something that's helpful.
Brilliant. I think that's a great place to wrap up. Well, thank you, of course, very much for joining me, Alyssa. It's been a beautiful conversation in many different ways and quite healing too.
Oh, well, thank you. This has been so fun. I appreciate you having me as a guest.
Oh, thanks. So I'm going to end the stream, but you're welcome to stay around for a little bit in the studio if you want to.
Okay, perfect.
Lovely to anybody. Thank you, to anybody who's joined us now or in future. We appreciate it. Thank you.